Deepti Laurent is with me on the set to take a look at what the papers have been saying today. Hi, Deepti.
Hi, Ginny.
Today in Paris and across France, people are remembering November 13th, 3 years to the day since those deadly attacks here in Paris that left 130 dead.
That's right, Ginny. And as time goes on, the pain of that night really fades away, and we're seeing that echoed in the French papers today. Only one paper is talking about it. That's the street paper 20 Minutes that is going with this headline, Broken Lives, les vies brisées, they say on their front page. Really looking at what some survivors say is a lack of empathy for their experiences from that night as time goes on. On that note, the French Public Health Agency has published a collection of studies into the psychological effect of 2015's attacks on collective national memory. They evoke the first circle of victims, the Huffington Post. That's victims, witnesses, and first responders who developed PTSD, something that was seen in 20% of people who lived through 9/11. In France, 18% of people suffered PTSD, 20% depression and anxiety, according to this study that was carried out 6 to 18 months after the attack. So we see these sort of long-lasting effects long after those attacks. Interestingly, 3 out of 4 French people say they need to continue talking about these events, while 25% say we talk about it too much.
Now to Turkey. Turkey has shared recordings of the Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi's death with Canada and Germany.
Among other countries, that's right. Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi was brutally killed inside the Saudi consulate last month in Istanbul. Turkish authorities have shared recordings of his death with Canada and Germany. That's what the Daily Sabah Turkish paper is reporting. CIA Director Gina Haspel is also one who's heard the recordings, although she wasn't physically given a copy. The New York Times says in one of those recordings, we're seeing some of the strongest evidence inculpating the Crown Prince Mohammed to the killing of Khashoggi. In one recording, we hear a member of the kill team tell a superior over the phone to say, to quote, "Tell your boss," those words, that the job has been done. This is, of course, through the translation. The Times does say it doesn't offer definitive proof. The prince is not named by name, and the Turks may have shared information selectively. They have an array of information, but they're only giving us what they may want us to hear.
Moving on now to another police brutality story out of the U.S.
Well, the irony this time with this story is that the victim, Jamel Robertson, was working in a bar in a Chicago suburb as a bouncer. He called the police on Sunday morning after a patron opened fire. He held down one of the attackers while waiting for the police. When they arrived, they shot Robertson dead, despite warnings from people on the scene. It's really horrific. Robertson's family is suing the police for $1 million now, but his death has really sparked an outpouring of grief and anger on social media. Let's show you this tweet. This user saying, "If you call the police, there is a possibility they will simply shoot whatever black person they see," and goes on to cite Betty Jones, Charles Kinsey, and now Robertson, all innocent black bystanders killed by police.
And that taking place outside Chicago. Chicago, of course, the home of the former President Barack Obama and the former First Lady Michelle Obama. I mention her because she's actually making the cover of Elle magazine's December issue.
It's actually ahead of the release of her memoir called Becoming, a no-holds-barred look into the life of Michelle Obama pre, during, and post-White House. It's quite fascinating. In this interview with Oprah Winfrey for Elle magazine, she talks about what it was like returning to civilian life after all those security restrictions had been released, how much she hates being a lawyer. She also reveals that she and Barack Obama went to marriage counseling to work on their relationship, and this really made headlines because they do seem to have the most rock-solid relationships. It was quite heartwarming to know that even they have problems sometimes. She also imparts her feelings about Donald Trump, particularly over his attacks on Barack Obama over his nationality. Obama also reveals she had a miscarriage, that she had to turn to IVF to conceive her girls. There are some lighter moments, though. Obama explains why she put her arm around what's now an infamous photo of her with Queen Elizabeth during a Buckingham Palace reception. She touched the Queen, which is sort of a major breach of protocol. She actually explains it was a moment of solidarity between the two women women. They were commiserating each other over how painful their shoes were. It's really
I think
sweet.
we can all relate to that point. Dipti, just to wrap up now, you've got a study that reveals the sounds that tick off Australians the most.
Well, the study is just Australians, but I think it could be quite global. So this study was conducted in Australia as part of a national sound report, concluding 95% of Australians are irritated by noises, things like people talking too loudly on their phones, construction work, loud music, but also babies crying in confined public spaces, bodily function that really features high up, sneezing, sniffling, coughing, chewing, swallowing, snoring. Just a quick survey around my colleagues, loud talkers, people who chew loudly, and actually one colleague said water drops irritate him a lot. For me personally, it's whispering. It really gets my eardrums ringing.
It might also be me hitting the microphone like I just did. Sorry about that. Dipti, thank you for that particular one with that look at what the papers have been saying today. You can get a closer look, of course, always at our press review on our website. That address is france24.com.